Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I want to talk about a very important topic. And this news story in a way highlights this topic I would like to talk about. And that is narcissists. It's especially those that write how society is supposed to go. They want to have a breakdown of society. And one of the main ways to do that is to ruin families and relationships between men and women. And we are seeing that happen in many areas of life in real time right now. And one of those main ways to ruin families, men and women relationships, and society, is to ruin the normal way how men and women meet, how they become attracted to one another, and how they develop relationships. And you see, the narcissists that are writing this evil narrative in society have also written into this story that it's to be a one-sided conversation. What I mean by that is you can only talk about certain problems with this narrative. Because if you talk about everything in an open and even blunt way, you are shamed and called names and run off. Because this heavily ties in with female and male narcissism. Because though we now know, and I believe it's always been the case, that narcissists come equally in all shapes, sizes, backgrounds and genders. The Bible talks about evil men and it talks about evil women. But somewhere along the line, the powers that be made it offensive to speak up about evil women and their evil deeds in any way without such women getting any blowback. A prime example is the difference between talking about narcissist mothers and narcissist fathers. If you were growing up and your father wasn't in the picture, and you mentioned your dad wasn't around, or you had something negative to say about your father, it was seen as normal and something acceptable to say. At least if you were in a Western country. And I say that to say, I know in other countries, the dynamic might be reversed. But in the West, if you were to speak about your father as a no-good deadbeat, it was almost applauded. But don't you dare say one word about your mother. And don't worry, I will get to why this news story is important to this topic. Because you will see the connection. But here's the thing. There is a narrative. And clearly it is a narrative being pushed in society. Pushing men and women further and further apart. But you can only talk about part of the narrative. Not the complete narrative, otherwise you are shamed and run off. Some of you that know me and know this channel know I've talked about Sylvester Stallone's upbringing, which was likely a case of a narcissistic abuse at the hands of both his father and his mother. But in a recent interview done by two of his daughters, I think within the last year, they asked him, when he was getting famous decades ago, and he spoke in interviews about his troubled upbringing, why did he only mention the abuse he had to deal with regarding his father? But he never brought up the abuse he had to deal with regarding his mother. And he answered this question his daughters asked him by saying he didn't want to seem like he was complaining. And that he didn't think people were ready to hear something like that. Simply put, he knew talking anyway other than positive about his mother would have been a career ender for him. Because back then you just didn't defy your mother even if she was 100% wrong. And even now, the powers that be are still trying to hold this narrative together. This is why if anyone speaks about women in a way that is perceived to be negative, they might be shadow banned, shamed, and pushed to the side, so others can't see their content. Now if men and women are equally evil, why would anyone want to prevent you from knowing about this fact? Maybe it's because they don't want you to know about this fact. Because something that is common in the narcissistic abuse community for both men and women survivors is our narcissist parents love it when we end up with a narcissist friend or someone that is a narcissist we are dating. However, when we look back at our lives, there were a few people that might have made a brief entrance to our lives. And by all accounts, they were decent people. At least from the limited amount of information we had about them anyways. And guess what? Our narcissist parent or parents made sure they put a wedge somehow some way in between us so such a relationship wouldn't even take place. I say that to say, narcissists don't want you to end up with healthy people in your life. They don't want you to meet and date and marry someone that truly loves you. But what they do want is someone that is going to pick up that narcissistic abuse where the narcissist parent left off. Also, they can feed on the misery and pain you will be going through in such a relationship. They might even act like they are on your side so you will go to them when you are having such a problem in your relationship. Narcissists love to create trouble and then pretend to be that person you can talk to when you are in need. Well, those that create this narcissistic system or narrative are just the same as your narcissist parent. They drum it in your heads to be looking for all the wrong people and all the wrong things in these people. And something I've been thinking about lately and something I want to talk about more in depth in another video. And that is the Garden of Eden. And how Satan tempted Eve away from her own husband Adam and away from God. And how Adam simping after Eve. He followed her into her evil choice. Look. The evil narcissists that run society are using the same temptation tactics used on Eve by Satan, as they are on the women in society. And that is, you can have more. And you deserve more. And you need more. And more is for yours to take. Look. Here's the facts. And this is something that some women get mad about when talked about. That average man. And no. I'm not talking about some man that looks weird and doesn't know how to talk to people. I'm talking about men that are decent to good looking. They are in the gym. They work a normal job. But for the life of them, they can't get the attention of any woman. The women all around them don't even see them. They are virtually invisible to them. And the reason why is, those that are writing the narrative are telling as many women as they can. You can have this and this. And do not settle. And before you know it, they end up in an empty revolving door with one playboy after the next. Simply because the man was chosen not based on character but based on fancy things and his so-called ability to provide. Look. The majority of men in society do not have the ability of providing for an entire household in the way they would like to and the way women would like them to. I will say it again. Please listen closely. The majority of men in society do not have the ability of providing for an entire household in the way they would like to and the way women would like them to. So what does this mean? The women in society have only 1% of men to look at and consider. And if that is the case, your chances of picking a narcissist or psychopath go way up. Because how they are meeting such men? Through dating apps and social media. And over the years, most of us that are in this space that make narcissistic abuse videos have been sounding the alarm and trying to warn people to stay away from this new pushed norm. Because narcissists are all over these sites like bees on honey. And there are stories upon stories of men and women being robbed or deleted after meeting women and men on these sites, being set up for home invasions or even extortion. But with all of this happening, people are still going on these sites, rolling the dice hoping they won't be a victim. But we have to ask ourselves, how did we get to this point? Why this is how people are meeting? And they are risking life and limb. And we have gotten to this point because those that run and design how society is to run wants people to stop having children. They want people to stop getting married. They want people to stop having healthy relationships. So they pushed in society hookup culture, and it's all about money. And this is why I tell the women out there, if you truly want to find a good man, the best way to do that is to understand what is happening in society first and understand the narrative first. If most people on planet Earth are in the same boat of dealing with raising prices of things, and are trying to do what they can to stay afloat, chasing rich men only is going to lead you into a den of 1% evil. Not to say that all of these men are evil, but your chances of getting a playboy that other women are with is extremely high. But once you understand the narrative, you understand that just like the narcissist parent wants you to date and marry a narcissist so you ruin your life, those that run society want you to do the same. So what should you be looking for? Especially if I were to give any kind of advice to a woman. And that is, pick a man that you can tell in his heart if he could provide everything he would. Maybe he can't. Because maybe he's stuck in the same mess as the rest of us. But pick a man that is decent. That truly loves God. And that truly loves you. At this point, all of this financial talk shouldn't even be a talk. It should be how are they as a person. And getting to know them in a normal way over time. Now even that isn't a guarantee. But I believe you will be a lot safer getting to know someone under normal circumstances. For the right reasons. As opposed to how people are meeting each other now. Despite news story after news story, highlighting the dangers and the truly crazy people that use such sites to harm others. Which brings me to this news story. A Wisconsin couple were targeting women, it seems, with poison. Women they didn't really know. Except for it was found out that some of these women were chatting on dating sites with the evil man pictured behind me. And this couple would track down these women. And in one case at least set up a trail camera near one of these women's homes. So they could monitor her coming and going. They would break into her car and put poison in the air vents in her car. And in a tote bag left in the car. And in a water bottle. Why they were doing these things remains to be seen. As it appears like these two nut jobs never met these women for real in person. Look. I've done a story on a man in England that took pictures of himself on social media wearing really nice looking fake Rolex watches. He met up with two women on that same social media site. And they set him up to be ambushed and deleted. All for fake watches. And when the police caught up with these women and men involved in the home invasion ambush, they found tons of super expensive designer clothes. You see. Some people do what they do simply because they are just evil. It's that simple. Like we've talked about before. Regarding the reprobate mind. There are some people that think, breathe and sleep evil. And though it's not a guarantee that you will meet a good man or good woman in person. But in my humble cartoon opinion, you have a way better shot than chatting online with arch criminals like the lovely people behind me. Look. Things have gotten to where they have gotten. Because Satan has gotten into the ear of Eve again. Or in this case, those that run society. And they are saying to every woman that will listen, all of these men out there, they are all beneath you. That guy working that normal job, he's a loser. And I believe it's because of this fact. Men and women are no longer meeting in the same way they used to. Because regardless if we have social media or not, social media alone doesn't drive all of this to happen. A narrative has to be created and pumped into people's brains to follow. What do you think would happen if the narrative that was pushed in society, that we are in tough economic times, and that men and women need to work together, and now is the time to grow together as families? If that was the message that was pushed over and over and over again, I believe most women would start seeing all of the men all around them. And they might start to see them differently. But remember, the narcissist parent wants you to be with a narcissist. And if these dating sites are rife with narcissists, the best way to steer women away from the men that are around them is to drum it into their brain all of these men are losers. So they will go on these dating sites. They can pick the income level and all of that superficial stuff that society says they should have in a man to be truly happy. Now, do men do this too? What about the men, right? Well, here's the thing to consider. A plain average woman can put up a profile on one of these dating sites and get hundreds of messages within 24 hours. A good-looking man can make a profile the same day and get none. Yes. Both men and women can and are capable of the same things if the opportunities are there. But most men don't even have the opportunity to even think about doing such a thing, let alone doing such a thing. These are just the facts. There has been news story after news story talking about most men are single and lonely. And most women have a very active dating life. How can this be when there are more women in the world than men? It's because a good percent of these women that are actively dating are sharing the same 1 to 10% of men, while the rest of the men are invisible. Look. I've used the Rocky movies many times as examples. An example of the effects of narcissistic abuse. And how to rise above it. But one of the wonderful things it highlights is having a relationship with someone for who they are, not what they have. Rocky has nothing. Adrian has nothing. Yet they awkwardly get paired up and fall in love. And even when Rocky does a little bit better for himself after fighting Apollo for the first time, because he wants to buy Adrian the world, he quickly falls upon hard times. Yet, Adrian doesn't see the hard times. She sees the quality of the man that he is. She understands what struggle is like and likely knew what struggle looked like before she ever met Rocky, as she was from a what looks to be a working poor family. And in such a family, you work together, not against one another. And it's no one else's business if you have to take your job back at the pet shop. You are doing what you have to do to keep things moving in your family. Because you don't throw people away simply because they are up today and down tomorrow. But then Rocky later on wins the world championship and becomes rich beyond belief. And they are still the same sweet couple. But then his accountant steals his money and is broke again. And guess what never changes? Adrian. She could care less if Rocky is rich or broke. However, she is likely moved by the fact that Rocky cared enough about Adrian from day one to stop by the pet shop and tell her a new joke every day. Or offer to walk her home. Even though Adrian would never answer and just in a shy way look around the room. Despite all of this, Rocky saw the quality. And she saw the quality in Rocky. And this is how people should be meeting other people. In a way where you can see the quality over time. And understanding that life isn't an Instagram highlight reel. But people are still on these apps chasing that perfect person. And I have news for you. They don't exist. And yes, there are men on these sites looking for a hookup. And just like that man that had pictures of him and his fake Rolexes found out, that was a big mistake. Because evil people took his life. But what I will say is this. For the women out there, if you ever see a video clip of the character Adrian Balboa from the Rocky movies, go to the comments and read the comments of the men saying they wish they had a wife or girlfriend like Adrian. Yes, men like looks, but looks become a lot less important when we are talking about loving someone. Yes, Rocky was attracted to Adrian because under those hats and glasses he knew she was pretty. And Adrian was attracted to Rocky. But at a quick glance she looks like a weird lady with glasses and frumpy clothes on. And even in that state, most men in the comments will say how they wish they could find such a woman. I say all of this to say, both men and women are the same within regards to narcissism. But just like Satan whispered into Eve's ear for a reason, the powers that be are doing the same to women everywhere for the same reason, I believe. And because most women have tons of power with these sites. Meaning, they get match after match after match. If they walk away from these sites and start giving the men around them a chance, I believe the entire online dating will go away. Or at least vastly shrink. But as it stands, women and men are risking life and limb by chatting with narcissists and psychopaths that want to either rob them or take their very life. I truly feel sorry for the ladies that were stalked and poisoned by this couple. And all I can say is, please be careful out there. Well, that's all I have for today. You can see a link for this news story in the box below. With that said, I do hope your day is blessed. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.